There we go.
Hello.
Yep. Oh, right.
This meeting is being recorded.
We only have 3 on your side. You have to share a microphone.
One moment at that table is so short.
This is not here.
Alright, fine.
All right, fine, bye. I won't take it personally. All right, we're ready? All right, I'll call the meeting to order. City Council meeting of Monday, July 12th, 2021. Good evening, everyone. First item of business is roll call.
Dave Anderson? Here. Carl Broberg? Here. Jennifer Mazias?
Here.
Mary McGrath?
Here.
Tom Nimas?
Here.
Karen Spears Novacek?
Here.
Laura Tulowitzki?
Here.
All right, thanks. Looks like we have a full house and therefore a quorum. Next item, pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is approval of minutes from the council meeting from June 14th.
And here I would move approval of the June 14, 2021 Common Council minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Karen, second by Tom. Any edits, suggestions, comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of monthly expenditures via roll call vote.
And here I would move approval of the review of the monthly expenditures as reviewed by the Finance Committee.
Second.
Motion by Karen and a second by Laura. Are there any questions? Otherwise, Tony, if you could do the roll call.
Laura Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Karen Novacek?
Yes.
Tom Nimas?
Yes.
Mary McGrath?
Yes.
Jen Mazias?
Yes.
Carl Broberg?
Yes.
Dave Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. If I could ask everyone to take your microphone and move it closer to you, I think that would be really helpful for the people online. It's on a pretty long cord, so if you can just pull it closer. On one right there that's way far away. You guys, yeah, as long as it's there, you can kind of lean in. All right. Next item is public comment. Is anyone here or online to give public comment tonight? Sure, if you would step forward and try to talk as close to the microphone as you can and state your name and address, please.
Yeah, I do have a soft voice. My name is Al Eisert. I'm with Man Properties. I'm here to talk about short-term rentals, if that's on the board. I guess we kind of, and we purchased this, try not to ramble, but, and we purchased this, the house on 1W 3rd Street about a year ago from a cousin. And at that time, we checked into it, made sure with the city that we were allowed to put up, a VRBO there, vacation rental. And we also talked to the realtor to make sure that we met, because we didn't want to buy it if we wasn't able to do that. And plus, we wanted to come up here and enjoy vacationing too. At that time, we had to get a conditional use permit, and it was not a big deal. So now it's kind of like, I guess, concerning to us that it's all of a sudden going to change with regulations. I guess I did read through it. Some of the stuff that we was really concerned about have left, which is good. But there's several things on here that are concerning to us. Section 711 and 3. There's the short-term rental and how they're gonna allow people to, or how many people are gonna be allowed to stay in the house. Because we have 3 that talks about the occupancy, which we are falling under right now, is the square footage, and we have plenty of space for that. Then we go down to the restriction, so I'm not sure which one we're trying to use, or you're trying to, 4 bedrooms, then it says 4 occupancy per bathroom. I guess our house, I feel that our house could hold more than that. And then we had the state inspector too, so the state inspector come in and went through all this and made sure that we were allowed to do that. The other thing that was, you know, I feel a little bit greedy is the $500. I mean, we already pay 6.4% in tax. You know, say, revenue for the rentals.
The room tax?
Yes.
So you charge that and then pass it along to the
Right,
city?
you guys
Yeah.
have paid that 6.4%. So I just feel
Which
like.
goes to the room tax commission, just to be clear,
Right.
the city doesn't get to.
Doesn't get to keep that,
most of
okay.
yeah.
I mean, we do have another VRBO and staff, and they charge, you know, there's fees to be charged, which we understand, but,
Sure.
I mean, I don't know what the actual fees are right now, but 500 seems a little bit steep. I guess that was some of my biggest concerns, and you know, the VRBO, it actually attracts in good people, and then I'd like to read some of the comments, if I could, about the people that stay at our houses, what their comments are on
And normally, I wouldn't respond to public comment, but I just want to make sure that you know that we are looking at, if there is an ordinance that does get put in place at some point, I don't believe that it would apply to the previously,
oh, you are going to grandfather them in?
and it's being looked at.
I mean, that's,
a question
yeah.
that would have to be answered.
Yeah, it's one of the things we're looking into, but there is definitely a possibility that the ones that were grandfathered in would just have to follow the conditional use permit requirements.
Okay,
So that's to be determined. So thank you for bringing your concerns forward, because we do need to look at all of these as we look at that ordinance.
Right.
Either way.
okay. I mean, we've had really good comments. And the thing about the VRBOs, we keep, you know, every VRBO I've seen in town, we really keep it nice, clean, neat. You know, we have cleaners come in every time a person leaves, so we keep the place up. And it looks nice. You know, we're not trying to drag in, you know, long grass and all that stuff. So I guess that's some of the positive things. And then plus the revenue that we bring in for people that, you know, like to shop in town, the gas, and you know, we have people that come in and do ice fishing, you know, through the year. That, you know, there were 12 people, and they were just thankful they had a place to stay that allowed 12 people. Because, so I appreciate your time. And
Absolutely. Did you want to read any of your comments? or-
yeah, I'm just trying to find it.
Sure, that's okay.
I do not, thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to get to that. Okay, some of the reviews. This house was great, plenty of room to spread out with our teenagers for vacation. The 2 bedrooms we didn't use were tons of, that you even used, there was tons of space. Comfy bedding, plush towels, you know, kitchen was well kept and clean. Another one, we had our daughter's college graduation party, so grateful for the use of the house. I mean, people are coming here that are from this area that, you know, whether it's college graduations or. And then this is a great place to get together, plenty of space for everyone, a nice living area for everyone to gather in. We had a great time. Minnie was great to respond to the people. We try to get right to them so that, you know, we have good rapport with them. The place was clean and had everything we needed. The beds were so comfortable. Minnie was quick to respond to questions. Highly recommend staying here again. So,
Very nice.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate your time. I know we have someone online that would like to speak. Melissa, if you'd like to go ahead.
Sure, thank you. I apologize that I'm not there in person tonight. I do have another appointment at 7:30. So I'm not able to stay the full time, but I am here tonight on behalf of the chamber to again ask the city council to hold off on taking any action on the short-term rental ordinance. I am very appreciative, and I know the businesses are very appreciative of some of the changes that were made since the last meeting, specifically the duration of stay, clarification on property management, and the appeals process being added were some major things that were sticking points that have been changed, and we appreciate that. I have spoken with several short-term rental businesses this week, or last week and this week, all of which have expressed concern in the cost of the permit, which originally was set at $300 with 500 being a suggestion from the Planning Commission, and the number of bathrooms, and the fact that if that particular bullet point was to be left in there, that would severely affect their rental capacity and ability to continue their business. So those are two of the things that I think are very important that need to be looked at. I did not see that we were going to be talking, or that you guys were going to be discussing the fact that the businesses that are already under conditional use permit might be grandfathered in. That's good to know, but it was not included in the packet, and so I don't know if that was made aware to the council members as well. And I do want to make sure that everybody knows that there was an email sent this afternoon by John Carlson that was sent to Max Lindsay, Mary Motiff, and Scott about some of the issues within the ordinance that need to be looked at because there is no statutory authority for those in there. So please consider postponing any action today until you've had a chance to look at it, until you've had a chance to discuss it. And I will again ask that you reach out to the businesses that it would affect and or the chamber. Because again, everybody I spoke to was in shock that this was being brought up before City Council and that they had not been notified by the city that this was going to be happening. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Melissa. Again, just a quick response that because this may not affect the current businesses, we're just looking at an ordinance moving forward. Appreciate your comments and for taking the time to reach out to existing businesses. And we did get an email just this afternoon, about an hour and a half before this meeting, and our attorney did take the time to respond to that email, and we have copies for everyone on the council here tonight. So this is definitely something that may need some more consideration. We were hoping that last month we would have had some feedback more promptly, so that we would have time to process that prior to this meeting, but anyway, we have what we have. Is there someone else who'd like to?
Yes,
Please come forward and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Okshimovich. I'm the owner of Driftwood Cottage, 614 3rd Avenue East. We are in our third year of our short-term rental here. I just wanted to start by saying we're super happy and have been to be a part of this community. Absolutely love it here. We're not against any regulations. We're not against fees, but I do have a few concerns. So first of all, I'm not sure how businesses, short-term rentals that currently have the conditional use permits, were they notified in any way? I was unaware that this was up for discussion until Melissa called me this afternoon. So we were surprised to not have been notified, since we currently do have the permit. That was my first concern. So were people notified? The items that I did hear about, there are a couple that would greatly impact our ability to run our business. The first was the conditional use permit, the proposed $500. I was a bit concerned, so somebody that has a 1 bedroom in their home that they're renting, as opposed to someone that has a 5,000 square foot home on a lake and can sleep 14 people, I thought maybe prorating that fee seemed more fair. And then the second item was the bathrooms. Again, we've had a conditional use permit for 3 years. We have a 1.5 bathroom home. We sleep 6. So the 4 guests per full bathroom would be a big deal for us. That was my other concern, and then, but also hearing that you're considering grandfathering those permits in is, something that makes me excited to hear. So I really hope that that's the way you go. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you for hearing me, and then again, we're super happy to be a part of the community.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here for public comment?
Yeah, my name's Catherine, and
What's your last name?
Erickson,
Harrison?
126 West Bayfield. I'm worried about my friend losing her apartment in the blue apartment building by the Washburn Inn, and that turning into VR, whatever it's called, short-term rentals, because already we get a lot of snowmobiles in our parking lot and through the alleys, and I just don't understand why they would take housing from people who need it to live here. I mean, why out-of-towners count more than the people who actually live and work here, and I feel like they're almost giving them more rights than they are the people that live here. I personally have to pay a lot of taxes to be here, and I don't want my neighborhood overrun with crazy wild people, and I don't want my friends to lose their housing here. And I did have renters. I sold that condo, but they had a hard time finding housing. They never did find any housing. Housing is an issue here, and if you take away decent housing from people who live here, how does it get replaced? And a building that was meant to be an apartment building for residents, I don't feel should be turned over into commercial property. And it just seems like he's trying to buy up everything and turn it into Disneyland or something, which probably won't work. I would like Washburn to stay a real town and not just something people can trample. I'm worried about that. I think we need to clean up the town a little bit. But I just want the people who really live here to have a place to live. And I guess that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much for your time. You can come back up. If we have anyone else online to give public comment? I don't see anyone raising their hand, so go ahead.
I did just want to also add that, we've had reservations this year. We've had over 120 nights booked this year so far, and we're only mid-July. So we have all of our guests. They're purchasing food here at IGA. They're visiting all the restaurants. They're shopping at the Movie Muse to buy their souvenirs. They are purchasing permits for snowmobiling and fishing. And again, for the people that have already have the conditional use permits, the grandfathering in seems like the right way to go. I mean, we are wanting this, we need this community to continue to flourish. We need it to thrive. We see all the new things that you're putting in, the little welcoming center on the corner, and the new signs, and new businesses that are going to be coming in, and we're super excited about that. So we want to be a part of this. We don't want to turn this into Disneyland. All of our guests are here to fish, to hunt. They're here, they have similar values, and that's why they're here, not at Disneyland. So it seems like there could be a balance. Yeah, we all are in this together, and we want to see things be better than they've been. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else for public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on. Next item, mayoral announcements, proclamations, and appointments. And you'll be happy to know I have no proclamations nor appointments, and only a few short announcements. The first, I forgot to grab the flyer that I hung up on the bulletin board over there for the EMT recruitment event. But we are hosting at the ambulance hall an EMT recruitment event next Tuesday. So it's a week from tomorrow from 3 to 7 p.m. And we would love to see some folks who are interested in becoming an EMT in our community show up and talk to some current EMTs, see some cool equipment on display. I think we're going to have a helicopter come and land and talk about that aspect of it. We really need some more EMTs, and so I'm really hoping that people will spread the word and consider stepping up and donating some time and energy to help our community. It sounds like, Carl, you mentioned the other day, the number of runs is on par with last year, which was a record year. And I think you said you had 11 in a 7-day period or something like that. You know, the busier we get in town, the more ambulance calls there are. And so we are hoping to have some more people join our happy little group of EMTs. All right, maybe that was an exaggeration. Our dedicated group, how about that, of EMTs. So please share that message out. I have posted it on the mayoral Facebook page. I have flyers available on the counter up there if someone knows of a place that they could post one. Even break rooms in some of our area businesses would be a good place. So if you know someone or know of a place to post one of those, we are looking to get some people there. WITC will be there with some of their instructors. So hoping to get some folks there. Next announcement is a ribbon cutting extravaganza is happening here on Wednesday. And there are 14 businesses that have opened since the beginning of the pandemic in Washburn, and then a few in a surrounding area. And so I think there will be 17 total at that event. So because it's so spread out, they wanted to have a central location outdoors here. So the ribbon cutting will happen here. I think Janet Yulee is coming even. We'll kick off the ceremony, and then there will be a map of where all the businesses are so that people can go and visit the businesses and learn about them. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some open house type treats and things at the different businesses. Music in the park then starts at 5. So thank you, Melissa, for starting Washburn Wednesdays, where businesses are staying open later, and just bringing reason to spend some time in Washburn, and of course on Monday too. So we're really thrilled about that number of businesses opening in Washburn. Next announcement is that the use of campgrounds and boat launches and all of our facilities is very high, and so high, in fact, that we've had some issues with the porta potties needing to get cleaned out more than they are now, which is twice a week. So I believe Public Works has added another porta potty to the West End boat launch. If anyone is hearing any feedback about that, just to let you know. I'm pretty sure that's what you're going to say, isn't it? Or we added one there. So yeah, some of us are getting phone calls at home on the weekends because of the porta potty, so glad to hear that we added another one. And we may need to look at some long-term solutions. And then lastly, just wanted to say that my first coffee with the mayor was good. I had 2 people show up and we chatted for a while and I had no idea what to expect. Some people said that they wanted to come but they were busy and, you know, we'll see. I said maybe next time I'll do beer with the mayor and see if I get more people that way. So stay tuned for future events. That's all I have for announcements. And moving on to our next item then is discussion and action on conditional use permit application to have tourist rooming units located at 215 West Harbor View Drive, units 4, 5, 7, and 8. Mixed use waterfront district, Washburn Apartments LLC petitioner. So it's kind of odd that we have a conditional use permit application on our agenda, and then we're talking about an ordinance to regulate the operation of short-term rentals later on, but so it is. That's the order of things as they come in. And so this request you have a memo on, and as you have heard me say before, we are very limited in how we can guide the use of short-term rentals. The state really has stepped in and limited local control over how we can approve or not approve these types of things. And with that said, there were some questions, I think, that had been updated on the conditional use permit. Language was clarified, and this is the language that we would be looking at moving forward then, for as long as we have a conditional use permit, I guess. So, with that said, I would be looking for a motion, one way or the other, to get our discussion started.
I move approval of the conditional use permit for the 215 West Harbor View Drive, the units 4, 5, 7, and 8.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Karen, a second by Dave to approve the conditional use permit for the requested units. Is there someone who has any discussion items on this?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So, in terms of timing, I mean, this one's gonna be, no matter what, we're gonna have to address this one first. We can't wait till after the ordinance is set, a suggestion from the administration. We have to.
The Wisconsin state law says that anyone who submits an application for a zoning permit is entitled to the zoning regulations at the time they submitted that.
Okay.
They have a property interest in the zoning code as it was written when they submitted that.
Thank you. And then my other comment is just to address some of the public comment earlier. You know, this is exactly what was some of the concerns originally when we were talking about, you know, tourist rooms. I mean, she brought up the exact point that we talked about. You know, we know that we have limited housing. We know, like, these apartments that, and I don't know how many apartments are in here, but I'm assuming
It's an 8-unit building.
8 units, so half of them
Yeah.
going to short-term rental. You know, that's,
Significant.
it's significant, and I think that, you know, I know that our hands are tied, but we don't have a lot of control over this matter, but that is a valid concern. And I just want the woman who stood up and talked about that it's a concern with everybody on the council, and we keep talking about this type of issue that we have. But this is not the place where we can address it, I suppose. So, that's all the comments that I have on it. It seems like we have a lot of options or regulations or stipulations that we can do.
Right, Tom?
I wish we could regulate like Dalton's doing, because they have the same problem that we have. They have no, or it's very limited, affordable, long-term rental housing. There's people looking all the way down as far as Chippewa Falls for finding a house to rent that have to be here. We have people wanting to move here in the southern part of the state because of the lake and that school system. We have to be concerned about not going too far and end up losing that school system, because then Washburn's in deep trouble. That's my concerns. I mean, if it's, you were saying, Max, that we could get sued if we did that?
If we did what?
Made the stipulation, regulation where they had to be resident of the city to have a,
Yes,
the
that's,
SDR.
that issue has not been determined yet. I know Lake Dalton, I don't know if a lawsuit has been filed yet against them, but there is discussions on that. There's no clear answer whether you can require short-term rental owners to have that be their primary residence.
Yeah, because they're doing the same thing with adults too, that's why I'm curious.
And I do think there's a balance, like, we appreciate the tourists coming in, we appreciate, I stay at VRBOs, I think a lot of people do, I think there's a balance, but it doesn't seem like we have a mechanism to achieve that balance. That's the hardest thing that I'm kind of, that I can't get over. There's not a lot of solutions for us, because I think there is a balance out there. I think we have a great balance right now. But if we keep tipping, all of a sudden then we're gonna, well, I hope we won't ever look like, the Outer Banks, where it's like one rental after another. I don't think we're gonna get there. So there is a balance, but I don't see a way for us to achieve that unless some of the laws give us some flexibility in that, because even our ordinance doesn't give us that. So I just want to be clear with people, like, we don't have a solution to this.
There's someone who would like to address this. Is there any one who would like to make a motion to open the floor at this point?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Laura, second by Jen to open the floor for public comment at this time. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead, you can step forward, Lynn.
Okay, that's the building I'm the most worried about.
Yeah.
And I know that 2 are empty, the people moved out. So the other 2 must be occupied. Are they going to evict those people? Do they get to just, it's starting to feel like New York City over there, where they, kick people out and try to get higher rents in and stuff. What happens? Are they able to do that?
That is up to whatever the law says that they can do as the owners of that property. We have no control over what they do, other than making sure, I guess, that they're following the law.
Was
So
any
I-
city money involved in building that building? To me, that's different than having your vacation home that you rent out
Not to our
sometimes.
knowledge,
No?
that's a privately owned property.
Yeah, but in the original building of it, I just wondered, it was privately funded?
Yeah, to our knowledge, there was no
The city
city
has no
vested
ongoing,
interest.
no ongoing management responsibilities, at least.
Even if there was at some point in time, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm just.
But we have no say in what they can do. We just don't. And I'm sorry that is the law, but that is the law.
I'm just worried about that.
Laura?
Could we actually get a refresher on what the law restricts us from restricting in short-term rentals? And from what I understand, we can't say no to property owners renting, but I guess I'd like to know what our limitations are, so maybe it can be heard again that,
Criteria that we have to prove.
yeah,
Yep.
It's pretty
So,
strict.
I can have a microphone.
Yep.
that it's
So,
not because we don't,
yeah.
want to preserve.
In 2017, the Wisconsin legislature passed a law that prohibits any municipality from regulating short-term rentals in certain ways. They specifically said that you can regulate short-term rentals less than 7 days, so you can ban rentals less than 7 days And a short-term rental is defined as something less than 29 days. So you can have this legislation applies for between 6 and 29 days. There are certain restrictions that you can put on that. The legislature said that it is I'll say it's a poorly written law. They have no guidance, no clarification there. But they say that you cannot prohibit rental for more than 6 but fewer than 29 days in a month. Except you can require those to be a consecutive period over 180 days, which in effect means you can limit property owners to renting for half of the year, but you can't prohibit them from renting altogether. That's what the law says. There's no guidance on how to interpret that. So the guidance that's been issued and that has been out there is that you can't have such restrictions and regulations that in effect prohibit people from operating short-term rentals on their properties. There haven't been any lawsuits over it, but I forget the municipality name off the top of my head, but one municipality, for example, charged $2,000 for a short-term rental license. The Department of Revenue said they did a review of that and said, no, that's impermissible, that's in effect prohibiting these types of short-term rentals, you cannot do that. So those are the types of restrictions you really need to have an idea. We don't have any clear guidance as to what is unduly restricted.
Even that is not, there's no number saying what would make it feasible.
What would make it prohibitive?
There is not, and there's not a case law on that. That decision, you can speak to this, you've read it too.
Well, what I was gonna say is there is a guideline of what fees are supposed to be, and they are supposed to only cover expenses, and they are not supposed to, in effect, prohibit people from doing things just by jacking the fee up. You know, we have to justify, and that's actually something that we'll address later in the ordinance.
$500 fee, and how do you justify that?
Exactly.
Administrative cost.
And I guess one thing that I'd like to do too, while we're on the subject, is clarify whether the current conditional use permit short-term rentals will be able to continue to operate, although they will have a permit fee annually, still by the conditional use permit guidelines.
Yes, they would. So that's Wisconsin statute 62.23. I believe this was a law in 2017 or 2018 also that really removed a lot of the city's discretion from these conditional use permits. The legislature there said once a conditional use permit is granted, it remains in effect for so long as the permit holder continues to comply with the conditions of that permit. So conditional use property owners who have a conditional use permit for a short-term rental continue to have that right so long as they comply with those conditions of the conditional use permit as was granted to them.
With the difference of the fee.
Correct. Again, this is one issue where there is not direct guidance on this point. I've done quite a bit of research on this, gotten recommendations from the League of Municipalities. The short-term rental statute specifically does say that anyone operating a short-term rental property is required to follow any licensing ordinance if the political subdivision adopts that. So running that by everyone who I've been able to talk to about this says that yes, you do have to, even if you have a conditional use permit, in effect, that would allow you to continue operating your short-term rental. You don't need to change to comply with the new regulations, but you do need to register that with the license with the city. That part is we're still working out the fine details on that, but to address the main concerns that were brought up, existing short-term rentals that have a conditional use permit are not going to be required to change or stop because of this.
Or comply with what we are later in the agenda going to be talking about.
Correct, with the substantive conditions of the licensing
Accepted.
statute, correct?
And we do still have the floor open, so I'm gonna call Al up.
I guess I listened, I'm sorry, I listened to this, but I'm trying to understand why are we looking at different avenues? If we're short, I live in La Crosse, and there's shorter houses down there too. It's everywhere. But why are we looking for solutions to solve that problem, not by restricting businesses to come in here? You know, because we're bringing in tourists and trying to enjoy this community. If you have a problem with housing, how come we're not looking at trying to get more affordable housing in here and building instead of
So-
saying, we don't want you guys?
So we are,
Yeah.
and that's a whole separate issue.
Right.
That is being worked on in multiple ways.
Right.
So just so you know, we are looking at the issue, but it is not a simple
Right,
issue.
right, yeah.
And we're actually working with a
Developers.
lot of the surrounding communities
Mhm.
to study that issue and figure out some possible solutions. The construction costs right now are not helping
Right,
any of us with that issue.
right.
So, yeah, it's a multifaceted issue.
That's my feeling, is that
Definitely.
you're trying to restrict the business that is bringing people into the community, but yet we need to figure out a way to bring more affordable housing for people in here too. because
Understood.
Your community's gotta grow. You can't just say, this is it for housing, well, that's all we have.
Understood.
So
Yeah.
that's, I guess that's my concern for you people to, if you want to restrict your housing, but, yeah, I think it's a good idea. And we all went through that, La Crosse is running through it, and, where you can't hardly find a house.
The whole country is running
Yeah,
through it,
yeah.
yeah,
So, I'm
absolutely.
sorry, it was just my comment.
Thank you.
Well, I think instead of using the word of restrict, I think we can change our language a little bit. I think we're just trying to manage a little bit better so that our VRBOs and such will fit in with our communities. And so like some of the stuff that we're looking at in terms of, the adequate parking, or if you look at the ordinance, I think.
And the bathrooms.
The bathrooms, we're just kind of looking at, preserving what our community, like if you're a neighbor, and I think a lot of our existing VRBOs do that. But what we're trying to do is be proactive so that in the future, we're setting ourselves up for success in our neighborhoods with people who live next door to VRBOs. So I don't like the word restrict. I like the word, maybe we come up with a different word. But
No, manage is a good word.
I just think it's being proactive and trying to look at what we can do as a city to, have a type of ordinance that fit back, a little bit better with our communities. Because I think there is a balance. I think we're achieving it right now. I'm not worried about right now. And I've had some people ask me that, like, why are we doing this? Like, do we really have a problem? And I'm proactive. I don't want to, like, we have to grandfather already some in. So it's just my opinion.
I would just make the point that, I've said it before and I'll say it again, all of these communities that we drive through and we look at and admire throughout the country, the ones that when you drive in, you go, wow, this is a pretty nice place. And they don't get that way by not having regulations and some restrictions. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I mean, the business community is going to do the least amount of spending money in a case like that. They only spend what they need to spend to open their doors. So, but I understand we do have a housing issue, and we have one nationwide. I agree with the comments there. I don't know if it's anything that the city can do to solve that problem. We have a land issue. There's a lot of land locked up with folks that aren't necessarily in the business of getting rid of it anytime soon. There's a lot of it on the east side of town. And the rest of the lots that are in town are somewhat unbuildable. And we have a lot of old housing stock that needs to be fixed up. And I don't know what the city can do to help that regard.
Other than advertise facade loans, perhaps.
Does that mean, are low interest loans or?
Yeah, do you want to speak to
Is there one for
facade?
housing? Or is that's only for Main Street?
Well, the city does have a housing program, there are income limits and so forth, but I don't have the specifics on that program, but that information is available. We can get that to whoever is interested in it.
I think Bayfield County's got one too, if I remember what's up.
Here.
Anything that's done, there's no vote coming from me, so I'll say that, so, as you would have addressed to Bridget the last time she was on. But the one thing I would say is we're dealing with the businesses that we know exist. We have no idea of the businesses that are not registered or doing rentals all on their own, and those do impact the neighborhoods and outside the area. I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but we're just addressing a smaller number that are legally asking for licenses and permits and businesses, and knowing there's many more out there that are not. So it's.
Do we know that?
Oh, all you have to do is go on VRBO and the other such sites as Airbnb, and you can pull up places that we know are not registered either as the chamber or licensed through the county. So, yeah.
You could rent your couch out.
I mean, the county's already said they could use a full-time staff person just to look up the ones that are out there running without any licensing, inspections, or otherwise. So, we're talking about two different groups of people, those that want to do it right and those that don't care to do it.
You don't want to penalize the people that are wanting to do it right, but making sure that the fee is enough to cover the costs, hoping that that's.
Carl, did you have something?
Yeah, I move to close the floor and call the question.
Second.
Motion by Carl, second by Karen to close the floor and call the vote to question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Abstain.
And all in favor of the motion to approve the conditional use permit as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And an abstention. Motion passes. Okay. Moving on to the next item, which is tab 2, discussion and referral to Plan Commission of request to vacate South 10th Avenue West from Omaha Street North to the alley. Mark McGinley and Rick Brugely petitioners. My question on this is, do we have a better map that we could look at?
I drove there today.
Is there someone that could pull up a map?
I have a question for Dave. Is that the old Randy Raymond zip code piece of land over there in that corner? Because I know
Are you
there's.
noticing something online, Laura?
I said we could bring Google Earth up for screen sharing, so you could just all see it.
I had to take a drive today.
I'd love to do everything when we talk about it.
Because I know there's a piece of that where you can't build in that corner that they had.
Sometimes it's nice just to put your eyes on it.
Oh, of course, I was like, am I looking at the right place? I think I am.
Oh, I guess I could try Google Earth.
So,
Okay, because this is what I get.
this one so that we can see the property tax lines.
That's great.
Yeah.
And in the meanwhile, let's just kind of frame this. We're looking at this just kind of initially to see whether there's significant opposition that would prevent the process from moving forward, or at least that would save time and energy knowing that the council is not favorable for some reason. This is not an ultimate decision that's being made tonight. This is just
This section right here?
It's just from there to there.
Here to here.
No,
Half that?
half.
Half.
From here to
So
the
the
alley.
alleyway to Omaha,
No, the lower half.
south side.
Yeah, so I was
South
not
side of
in the right
Bayfield
place.
Street on 10th, and it is again alleyway to Omaha.
That's that zip code property.
I don't know if you're used to, if you're down by the vets there and you're on the left-hand side and that dirt road bends,
Oh, that's this
that's
section.
it right there.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah.
Okay.
When I blow in, I lose the, so it's this section here.
It's actually,
No, that's a block north.
No. The north of that.
Yep, block north.
Go
off
up,
street.
the next block up.
Yep,
It would not.
it's currently owned by Liberty.
and Mayor, question?
Yes, go ahead, Karen.
Because if we
Right here.
agree that there's some merit to this, then it would go to the plan commission.
And then
for-
come back to council.
I think the fact that have been at least a number of landowners that are in the area that have said it made sense. There is a ravine there that is unbuildable. You know, I mean, we don't like to vacate streets. We sometimes vacate alleys, but streets we don't. But for building purposes, it seems to make some sense. I think that the planning commission is going to look at it in more detail. It seems to me that it would be worth, bringing it, sending it to them to look at.
So I was not in the right place today.
That's it, come across.
I was not in the right
Right
place
there,
today.
from the,
Oh,
It's the first left after the Scarecrow Pizza, or
Yeah.
right after the vet.
yeah, right after the vet, you take a left, and that
And
curves
it
around.
comes back.
Yes.
And then, if you're sitting in the alleyway, you can look right through the woods and see Omaha.
Yeah.
Mine is like a little slider right here.
okay, so show on the map one more time, exactly what
On the
section.
south side of the highway.
It keeps moving around, so I.
Oh, that's Timbertop.
Did this show it? This didn't bring up contours for that.
I was trying to show the contour so you can see the ravine where it is.
So, just out of curiosity, the landowners knew the ravine was there when they bought the land, did they not?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
just to
Yeah,
clarify.
Yeah. But I mean, the
Yes.
16 that are in that general area that have been notified, I think, 9 have sent letters saying, it makes sense.
Sure.
to- I mean, and
And
then
just to clarify, there have been additional letters that have come in.
beyond the 9.
In support,
Yeah.
yes. Okay.
And,
It's a new building.
yeah.
Water and sewer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if I can think of a reason why we would say,
sure can.
don't send it to plan commission to look at.
So, my question is, does it cause a dead end? And then you'd have to go around?
You already go around, it's solid wood there.
Oh,
There's no street there.
oh, there's no actual street there?
No, it's an alley that comes off of the highway.
Well, it's,
And
the
that's the
alley
water,
doesn't go all the way
slants
through.
back, right?
It goes to the next street.
This alley is through, but the access to the alley is off the highway. So this portion would remain open, so
Yeah.
someone can drive down here and access the alley. Okay, so but the only portion that we're looking to vacate is right here.
And there's wood
That's all
there.
wood.
It's solid woods.
That's solid woods.
So, I guess I don't see the issue.
There shouldn't be,
I
but
think
that's
it's
all
only,
woods.
it's only thinking of future, right? It's like anything, but I think in this instance.
With the ravine,
A ravine there that we probably want to keep that integrity of that and, I'm sure there's, but I think there's in other circumstances where we'd be like,
well, yeah, I mean, if both sides were buildable,
right.
So the sense I'm getting is that there's no opposition to this moving
Move it on.
forward?
Move it on.
Do we need a motion?
I
to
move
do
that we refer this issue to review by the plan commission.
I second.
Motion by Karen, second by Carl, to refer to plan commission.
Is this just standard to refer to planning commission?
Yes.
Just to- okay.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and for your desire to develop a property.
Can't wait to have you guys back.
We can't wait to be back.
Very good. All right, moving on, discussion and recommendation on acceptance of donation of real property along East Memorial Park Drive and intended uses, which is tab 3.
Mayor, I would move that we approve this donation and thank Don Ekstrom for his generous donation allowing North Coast Cycling to extend that trail. I think this is a win-win. And Don should be congratulated, and I do. So I so move.
Excellent. And we already have a second by Laura, but thank you. Yes, this is great. This is amazing. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to extend the use of that strip of land that happens to be situated where it is. It makes a lot of sense. The only suggestion, I guess, that I would have is if it is desired, with the condition that it be non-motorized use only on that section, I'm assuming we'll need to put up some sort of width limiting gate or something to help prevent that from being used by motorized traffic.
I think North Cycling has talked about that already. Did they, when they came to parks?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about, it doesn't really go anywhere for motorized, so it doesn't have that kind of use going that way.
Okay.
And so.
If it becomes a problem.
If it becomes a problem, I think you would do more. I think right now it's just gonna be some signage. I was there the other day walking, and I guess we just have to see.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Very good. So we have a motion by Karen and a second by Laura. Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Ekstrom.
Roger Aiken is actually connecting now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Tell him.
He's not in yet, but it says that he's connecting.
All right, well, I guess we'll wait just a few moments here and see if that happens in the near future, since our next item could be lengthy.
Yeah, I'm asking him to unmute.
Okay, Roger, are you on?
Yeah, I think I can barely.
Okay. We can hear you at least partially, and wanted to thank you for your work on this item on our agenda. You didn't hear, but the council just approved the acceptance of the donation, and wanted to thank you and Don for your work on this, and of course Don for his generous donation.
And we'll but stay in whatever we can improve Washburn.
We like the last.
We like the last
Thank
one.
you. Really appreciate it. Okay, moving on to our next item, discussion and action on ordinance 21-004 to regulate the operation of short-term rentals. So not only is this tab 4, but also the accompanying document that was submitted earlier, just a few hours ago, and responded to immediately. There are definitely questions with this ordinance still. And however, an ordinance would help streamline the process for the applicant, making it clear what the regulations are and allowing easy enforcement of those regulations. One of the items that we talked about that we'll need to address is the fee. Absolutely, for sure. We need to be able to justify whatever fee we do decide upon, if we do decide upon an ordinance with a fee. And there were some questions that came up in discussion too, about some of the items here. Now, we did clarify that existing conditional use permits can continue to function as is with those conditions. So we are looking at this for new applicants. And I think that a couple statements about the bathrooms not being sufficient for the current use of the current short-term rentals shows that this could be an ongoing issue. So maybe it's a good thing to restrict the number of bathrooms. You know, that is one of the things that we can do to make it fit with the zoning code and guidelines that we would like to see happen in our neighborhoods. You know, because we do have very limited options for the things that we can control, that seems to be one of them, to some extent.
Yes.
Can I ask a question on that one? So for example, in the Driftwood Cottage, where she said that she has a
1.5.
1.5, and
Does that count for two
with a
people?
6, does that, so is she within code? Just as an example,
Yeah.
is that one in code, within code?
I hadn't contemplated that. We'd need to clarify.
That's
on
where my
that.
mind went.
And for any restrictions that we place on this, we should have substantial evidence for the reason we are, I guess, implementing those restrictions. I think that there was a discussion, I think it was at the last meeting or at some point, about restricting and the concern with 8 guests being with 1 bathroom place. So that's where this condition on the number of restrooms came up. I know that the square footage of floor space for occupants, that was based upon our minimum housing code. So that's actually in that place anyway, but that is something that we can rely on to back up to support those regulations. I guess we just need to stay away from any type of restrictions that we put in place. Oh, because Tom thinks it's a good idea. We need to have some actual factual basis to put those restrictions on.
Which we should.
Yes.
I mean, again, I don't think we're restricting, we're trying to regulate it. We're trying to, you know, manage it the same way we do with some of our other housing codes. And so, can we go back to the bathroom one? So where did the 4 to 1 come from? Does that come from a housing, or is that just none?
I don't recall exactly where that came from.
Okay.
I would say with the discussions here and reviewing some, that may be moderately unduly restricted. So
Okay, good.
increasing that at some amount.
I'm
To
assuming
6?
I'm assuming there's some kind of health code, something when you build a house, don't you, how many bedrooms you have to have so many bathrooms? Isn't that, is there some
What
kind
is
of
the code for building, for
Yeah.
regular residential housing?
That's something we could
Now,
investigate.
I was speculating, to try to figure out what the reason was for these rules, as we do with everything, and I assumed it's to keep people from peeing outside in the shrubs because it's crowded when people are late at night, and, you know, the neighbors dealing with that, you know, along their fence line, it smells like urine, whatever, and, you know, how do you deal with that?
So, seeing as though we have questions that we're not going to be able to address tonight, but I think that there's probably some valid questions that we still need to hash through, and there was some good feedback in this that we just didn't have time to process.
I'll move to table this until the next meeting.
I would second that motion.
So we have a motion to table.
If I could have some discussion, or I'll make a comment on that. I know that when we're working on ordinances, I do ask for any written feedback or anything. That is very helpful to get it. And this time we got written feedback an hour before the meeting, which is why I was late to the meeting, because I was trying to address those questions. So if people do, council members and members of the public, we're asked to reach out to you, we would really appreciate that feedback. If it could be written to Scott or Mary, so that we can incorporate that and answer any questions before the next meeting.
Karen?
I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead.
In an hour and 25 minutes, our attorney was able to respond to a number of questions, and I'm not valuing the questions that were put forth. I mean, I'm sure that they're legitimate questions, but at 5:15, Max, had these questions answered with the comments on the spread page. That is much too much, and this is not Max's fault. This is much too much to digest in a short period of time. So that's one comment. And Max, thank you for responding in an hour and 25 minutes. I don't know how you did it. But secondly, Melissa has talked about, short-term rental owners not getting a chance to comment. And so we have now the draft ordinance. We have additional comments that have been presented by the attorney representing a short-term rental. We have Max's comments. So I really think it's important that Melissa make sure that she communicate as best she can with the people that have a stake in this, so that they respond to Scott and Max with additional comments, because we need to get this moving.
And to that point, really the fee is the only thing I think that the current short-term rental owners need to be consulted about with. And this has been a public process, although we have not reached out, I guess, to all of the current owners. So we should do that, definitely, about that particular item for sure. Another thing that I just saw here in reading through these comments was about the parking. The question came in, what about rentals that don't have off-street parking? Well, maybe that rental shouldn't be a rental. Yes. And that's part of the reason why we do have that included in the ordinance. And so that is, again, another way that we can have some control over which properties become short-term rentals by adopting an ordinance. And that one, I'm guessing you'll look into whether that is, excessively prohibitive, but I don't think it would be off the top of my head, but I'm not an attorney. So is there anything else like that anyone knows just off the top of your head that you'd like?
The $500 fee, I'd like to know if there's a basis for that, or that was just,
I think we came up with that at Plan Commission. Not based on anything other than our imagined amount of time that would be spent by staff putting together what would be needed to do this.
I guess I'd like, not at this time, but I'd like an evaluation by city staff on the actual cost of managing this and whether that's an appropriate amount or not.
And I do feel it was interesting, although probably the processing would be the same for a one-bedroom versus like the whole sliding scale type thing. Right. So I do think it is interesting, a 5-bedroom on the lake could absorb a $500 processing fee much easier than a tiny house with 1 bedroom.
Yeah, but if it's...
But it's the processing fee.
If it's a processing fee, then...
It might not be able to be a sliding factor.
Right.
And maybe there should be more considered for potential problems, sort of an insurance against needing to deal with issues. The more income, the more capacity you have. Would assume there would be more to regulate or
more potential for problems.
More potential for problems to manage.
So if you don't mind, Scott, working with staff on coming up with what your
Should be like alcohol
estimate would be.
licensing, really. It'd be similar to alcohol licensing.
Because it's a cut and dry ordinance.
Yeah, it's a reach out, it's
permit comes
crunch,
in,
and it's
gets processed.
So I think that's something to put on this list. 500 feet is too much, maybe it's appropriate.
Okay.
Well, and just one more thing, isn't it a one bedroom in your house? That would be a bed and breakfast, wouldn't it? Isn't that?
no. Bed and breakfast is the owner lives in the house and cooks breakfast and or
I
lunch.
thought you did that.
Specifically a different, Yep. So we have a motion to table in a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks for taking the time to go over things again.
Yes.
I think we have new people that come in, and I think it's okay to rehash and go over things, so thank you.
We want to end up with a good product, for sure. Okay, next item. Discussion and action on development agreement with Washburn Ironworks for relocation of sewer main / ironworks expansion. This is tab 5, however, I don't believe we have an agreement to consider at this time. That is still being worked on. So, I would entertain a motion, or do I need a motion if we don't have what we need? Just
Well,
not
there's
act
the
on
heirs.
that?
Heirs.
Oh, and then the heirs.
I mean, it's not.
That's the next item. So we do not have the agreement to consider, so we'll skip this item.
Don't we need a motion to go forward with an agreement with the heirs to do the engineering?
And that would be the
work?
next item, yeah.
It's in tab 6.
Tab 6.
Oh, they're both in tab 5.
They are both in tab
It's a
5.
separate item though. So we'll skip the agreement
Okay.
and go to the next item, which is the discussion and action on the agreement with heirs.
I would move that we approve an agreement with heirs to do the engineering work for the sewer main relocation, contingent on the development of an agreement with all parties involved in the ironworks project.
Second.
Motion by Karen and a second by Carl. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Passes with one abstention. Okay, next item. Discussion and action on acceptance of bid and award of contract for North 10th Avenue West resurfacing project. Action on other options if bid is rejected. Tab 6. So, this is not an ideal situation, but per Scott's memo, it would be important, I think, to move forward with street work if at all possible. Does anyone care to make a motion on this to get our discussion?
I move to accept the Northwoods bid of $165,875 to resurface 10th Avenue and seek a budget amendment for $40,000 at the next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Carl, second by Karen, as stated. Anyone have any questions, concerns, discussion?
I was going to ask for Scott's opinion, and he gave that in his memo, so I don't even have to call him out on the table.
Karen?
As much as I have talked about the windows at City Hall, we have also talked about 10th Avenue West at length for a number of years, and it's only getting worse if we don't do it now. The deterioration will cost even more, so I would hope approval of this motion.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next item, discussion and action on authorizing notice for Santa Leyenda LLC at 901 West Bayfield Street for issuance of a Class B and Class B alcohol license. Those were air quotes, sorry, for those of you that aren't watching. Two different types of Class B. This is tab 7 of your packet. And first of all, I'm not sure if Nestor is with us online. I don't see But I wanted to say welcome to Washburn for the new business owner. Happy to see another restaurant opening. I think we can use one in town. With that said, I know that there have been some discussions about our current situation with the number of licenses that we have available in the city. You know, the city is involved in developing an agreement with Badger Kolish on the Lost Apostle Brew Pub. And Mr. Kolish has made a substantial investment already with his architect and design, as well as purchasing the adjacent property now. He closed on that property next to the Broke Down and is making that available for public parking until, you know, he has a need to use it himself. We have made some progress on our negotiations with that agreement, although we don't have an agreement in place yet. The city definitely has skin in the game, though, in that situation, and the brew pub is counting on a liquor license as part of the business plan for that business. So, with all of that said, does anyone have a motion they would like to propose for this to get us started with our discussion?
Well, I guess I would make a motion to decline the application for the Class B intoxicating liquor license to Santa Linda LLC.
And maybe, sorry, before we finish that thought, maybe I should have put out there that it is a possibility to approve the authorizing notice for the beer license, but not the alcohol license, which would be one way to proceed.
That's why I said the intoxicating liquor.
Got it. Okay, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Right.
Okay. So the motion would be to authorize notice for the Class B beer, but not for the Class B intoxicating
Right,
liquor.
and with some clarification from our attorney during discussion.
Okay. So there's a motion to proceed with one but not the other. Is there a second to that motion?
Second for discussion.
Okay. Motion by Dave, second by Mary. Then discussion. And the question that you have for Max?
So have we explored obtaining another liquor license from an adjoining township?
So, there are a few different ways that there could be a possible solution for the liquor license issue. We do not have a solution ready at hand. But there are a couple of different ways. One is that, what you just mentioned, but I don't believe any discussions have occurred with our surrounding townships to this point.
But you can do that.
So, you can purchase a liquor license from a surrounding town if they are willing to sell one for a minimum of $10,000.
The cost.
There is a cost, which we would have to pass on to whoever is, desiring that license. There's another option, which I talked about today with Tony and Scott, that we have not had the time to look into because I just found it today in reading the fine print in one of many publications that I've been perusing on this issue. It's a long shot, but there is one other possibility that would involve rearranging how we have one of our current licenses with one of the license holders. So there are things that we can look into. But at this time, and there's also, an unknown future until we get an agreement in place, with the current situation that we're working on. Although we absolutely want to support that moving forward. you know, now that we have made that decision, we would like to see that, we would like to see Badger be successful and develop his destination brew pub here in town. I think everyone was on board with that when that decision was made, and hopefully still are. And so there are some options potentially in the future, and we would certainly encourage the new restaurant, Santa Leanda, to come back with an application if we discover that there is a way that we could have a different license, or an additional license, I should say, one way or another. But unless someone has a magic answer for that tonight, that I think the motion as you worded it is probably the best bet for right now. And certainly, it's not something that we're gonna be done with. We'll have to do some more research and looking into and discussing and negotiating and things like that potentially.
Going over some questions here from the Department of Revenue. Have we checked into reserve licenses? Do we know what those are?
Yes, we do not qualify for reserve licenses.
Of course.
Good question, though.
And what's involved in qualifying?
Is it the size of the city, among other things?
No, it's a matter of the number of licenses that we issued in 1997 versus the number of licenses we issued in the 1920s versus the population at the time of one of those dates would have qualified for us for reserve licenses, and we don't meet the qualifications to have any reserve licenses.
We don't drink enough. Not the answer.
It's a matter of how many licenses were issued during certain points of time, also including our population.
This is insane.
So that's what I looked at the last time we had this discussion with the 21 Martini Bar.
I was gonna say, we came up with one for them.
We had one.
Yes.
Well, he did that research and
Yeah, that research,
we
you found
actually
one.
have
Come
one.
on, get on it, you're so close.
Research has been done, and I checked.
So this one allows beer and wine, correct?
Yes.
We have both, yeah.
And we have an unlimited amount of those, is that
Yes.
right?
Just can't make a margarita.
And
And a
Mexican restaurant wants to make a margarita, I'm sure.
As Nestor applied, it would be beer, fermented beverage. He did not apply for a wine license.
But he paid,
Good.
You should.
That's the only option right now. How, do we have a date when Badger will be using his license that we're reserving for him?
We do not have a date at this time.
Are you suggesting that we could look at giving it to him for a year and then taking it away?
Right, well, I don't know how that works. If they every year.
Well, I'm just wondering if that's what you're getting at.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's really hard
Not,
to
well, that's
not.
the way that sounds, but no, nobody wants to do that, but if they're already on like a time limit before they can be renewed, or we're looking at the value of a business in the community, then it has to be, you know. priced.
Yeah, it's really tough to deny one when they.
The council can rescind alcohol licenses, but they would need justification to do so.
Yeah, it would
And
not
it would
be
require a
preference.
public hearing, and more than likely it will be without the justification. It will go to court, it would be like this.
That's not what I was after.
So what is?
Hold on, Tom.
Would it not be more feasible for the brew pub to be able, if we could buy a license for them to dissolve that financial burden than it would be for that little restaurant?
So, we don't even know if one is available.
Right, but I mean if there is one available.
So, I guess we're looking for how we can help the restaurant tonight.
Right.
And then in the future, if we decide one could be available, then we could have those discussions about, yeah.
And can a license be shared in a way that another seller with a license can be responsible for the providing the sale of on another?
You can have a appointment of authorized agent to act on your behalf, but it has to be at the same location, the same premises as the initial license holder. So one could not get it for a property here and then authorize someone, another in the town to act under that license.
Do we have any of the intoxicating liquor licenses that like really aren't being utilized or just?
Well, yes, so that's an interesting question, because there could theoretically be a license that may have not been used last year, but it was COVID, and I don't know that we want to take away a license from a business, penalizing them for not being open during COVID. Because there, I think it's literally you have to be open one time in a year. Is that what the minimum?
I believe we have an ordinance on that, I just don't know what it is on
It's very minimal.
Yes, there's no state statute, but it is very minimal activity to show that your intent is not to abandon your liquor license.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, did you have something?
Do we know what the threshold is in Washburn as far as how much more population growth we need to obtain one more?
You need to increase your population 500 people to get another liquor license.
500 people from what?
Based on 1997?
I believe so, and we are not at that.
Do you know what our population was in 1997?
I believe it was greater than what it is now.
I was afraid of that. The state used to give you an additional license if you got over your I guess your population in 97. So if you're within that next 500 range, but then they changed that to you have to be 500 or above. And our homeowners, or our second homeowners don't count towards our population, so that is a challenge.
Correct.
When you take the census, you have to list your primary or your residence as of whatever. Okay.
Is there a department you can contact to say, yes, but we have a lot of seasonal drinkers?
I would love to see a lot of special rules for those of us in rural areas that are tourism destinations, but don't think that's.
Is there temporary licenses available?
Events, one day for nonprofits.
Only for nonprofits, yeah. I know, I was hoping that we could do like, make margarita night once a month. Yeah, no.
A moving target.
Yeah. Well, it's.
I need to sell flasks at another business. Something I should say.
Can they allow carry-ins? That doesn't help them. Okay. Any other questions, discussion?
Tony, you're dealing with the new owners then?
With This Is How?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken with them.
Okay, I'm just saying that if when you do, to make it clear that we really want to, but here we are, but there's still things to be done yet.
Nestor understands that. We had a
Okay.
discussion when he dropped off.
Excellent, okay, thank you.
Do you have anything to add, Ned?
Right.
So this is basically hopeless?
Right now.
No, I mean,
Other than buying one from an adjoining municipality?
I mean getting another one.
That's it. And so, I guess, let me ask one more question. Is this a one-time fee for you? Is this an annual purchase? If they give one up, they give it up for good, as long as we want it?
Not sure. I think so.
It's an annual, so there's a renewal. Last month, we renewed all the liquor licenses for this.
No, but the purchase, if we were to purchase
One from
I
the
see
town
what
of
you're saying.
Spadina.
from an adjoining town, it would have to be.
once we've purchased it, it's ours forever unless we sell it back to them?
That has to get all looked into. The other scenario that I'll put out there, because it's out there on this list of other scenarios, is a theater who is operated by a nonprofit. We are allowed to give an additional license to. However, our theater, and we literally just looked at this today, so I have not contacted John with this, but the license would have to be in the name of the nonprofit that's operating at the venue, or that's operating the venue, and so I'm not sure if that is a fit for that situation.
The groundlings?
But it could potentially, but John Wynell would have to give, Stage North LLC would have to give up the license and allow the groundlings, like they'd have to have an agreement, an operation agreement, and then the groundlings would be the one to have that additional license.
His incentive to do that would be
To help the community.
So it's could be a tough sell.
To better describe that, the only way we could issue that additional license to a theater is with all of our quotas are issued, if they are permitted.
Right.
So to have an open one our quota has not been met, so they would have to be established or issued to other businesses.
Right. Which gives us a little time, because by the time all of our licenses would be taken up, maybe that could be a backup plan potentially if he's agreeable to that. So there are a couple of options that have to get looked into further. But this is, I think, as good of a scenario as we can get for now, is proceeding with announcing the beer license and encouraging him to come back if another license becomes available.
Okay. So much like with everything else, this is the notification, which would then be published 3 times in the paper, and this will come back next month for the approval of council of the license.
Of the beer.
Of the beer, fermented beverages.
Should we make, he doesn't want to do wine? Is there a difference in fee?
It's an additional fee. He didn't, I would assume that if that's something he wanted to do, we'd put that on his application.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Just give them a line. I would clarify that. Sangria or other options. Make that note.
But we can only approve what he applied for, so.
Right.
Yes.
How
So we have a
much
motion and a
extra is,
second.
how much extra is the wine fee? And is that a state thing or is that our fee?
There is one consideration that I would request to make an amendment to your motion for. City ordinances 7.2.10 sub 3 says that no application for any liquor license which shall have been denied for any reason shall be again considered by the common council for a period of 3 months from the date of such denial. If you could just amend that motion to allow them to reapply without consideration of this provision. Just in case Badger comes back, says we're not doing this, they can apply next month and get this liquor license.
So it's a denial for a 3-month period, is that?
No, that it specifically stated that they may reapply within 3 months.
Okay.
If the conditions change.
Gotcha. So I'll amend the motion to deny the intoxicating liquor license with the ability to reapply within 3 months.
Okay, and Mary, are you okay
Yep,
with
we're
that?
good.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the authorizing notice for the beer license only, with the ability to reapply for the liquor license within 3 months if the opportunity becomes available.
I just have one more second.
Yes.
the $100 fee for the wine, is that something we can just give him as is that a fee that?
No, that's
state
the
is
licensing fee.
collecting? That's the state?
It's the city that sets the fee,
Yep.
but that's the fee for that license. It's a separate license.
Are you asking if just,
What I'm asking is,
Are we able to waive that fee?
yeah,
It
we
becomes-
to waive that.
And that would be a separate discussion, I think.
I would
If he
think
comes
we'd have
forward.
questions from every other business that has the liquor and, the beer and wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to be a nice guy here and figure this out for everybody.
Duly noted. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item, tab 8, discussion and action on request to allow for open container on Harbor View Event Center property for the North Coast Car Show.
So moved.
Blah, blah, blah. Motion by Mary to approve. Second by Laura. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And last but not least, discussion and action on request to close Central Avenue from Bayfield Street North to Alley on Friday, July 23rd, 2021 for family street dance.
Second.
This is motion by Mary, second by Karen. Any questions? All in-
I know it works.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That made it in by the skin of its teeth as the agenda was being finalized. So glad that made it in. Thank you, everyone, for your work on this and for your time tonight, and have a good evening. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Because we have one tabled item.